Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Lawrence Eaton and I'm back for another one of these slightly facetious video series. And in this episode today, we're going to be talking about the big pink elephant in the corner of the room that weighs 800 pounds. Yes, project organization. This is not project management, but it is project organization. If you've seen the way that projects are organized, you have different ways, different outlooks about how you would want to do it. In the decade of experience I have as an instructional designer using multimedia, I'd like to give you the benefits of what I do and what I've offered to companies to give them the best solution going forward. And I'm also going to give you the reasons why I do it. I'm also going to be introducing you to free tools that you can download for both Windows and Macintosh to help you with project organization going forward. With that, let's go forward. I was once told at a conference that in fact project organization is akin to this saying. And besides the literal meaning of it, what this was trying to convey was that at some point you or a member of your team or the client themselves are going to request from you the files, the information, or something. And if you don't have it, you are going to lose a lot of the trust in the relationship that you have spent a lot of time building up with them. Or you can't find the files yourself to work on. So what we're going to do with this session is give you some idea of some of the project organization things that you might want to look at and the reason why. So let's have a look at some of the reasons as to why we would need project organization. And I may just admit to you that if you'd asked me 10 years ago why we needed project organization, I would have been an organization anarchist. I didn't believe in it. I really didn't. But since being in the instructional design world and doing a lot of multimedia instructional design, I have learned the incredible value of having that organization. So let's have a look at some of the reasons that I've come across and some of the problems and some of the solutions. One of the reasons, and one of the biggest ones, is records compliance. Most companies these days have a mandatory requirement to keep records for up to 2, 4, 8, and more years. This is for legal reasons, and they must keep those files. From an instructional design perspective, we probably want to keep our source files that make up the projects in a repository on a server somewhere so that if we have to revisit them, retask them, renovate them, rejuvenate them, or sunset them, or even go back and modify them, we can easily do it without telling our client we've got to start from square one. That's just one reason, records compliance. Another one, a good one, is a growing team. Perhaps you've got people coming on board. Perhaps, unfortunately, you've got people leaving. But let's start with a growing one. You've got people coming on board, and you need them to be as productive and efficient as possible in a short amount of time. So if you have good project organization, you can believe that those people will be able to find the files they need, be able to label them and put them back where they need to be in a very short space of time. The last one is what I call an emotional moment. And this is where, for some unknown reason, you've been let go, you're leaving, or you get hit by a bus. What that means is that when you leave, a vacuum forms. And the faster the team can fill that vacuum, and so your legacy carries on as being an amazing instructional designer rather than a bit of POS. It's as simple as that. So let's have a look at some of the common problems that we as instructional designers with multimedia have. One of the biggest is FTPs. If you don't know what an FTP is, Google it. It is really the backbone of everything that we do. It is not pretty. It's not designed to be pretty. But what it does really well is that it moves data very, very efficiently. The problem is you may have found a file that you have that has something like this in it. That's right, a percentage sign. What that means is somewhere in that file there's a space, and a computer can't have a space. So what it does, it substitutes the space for a character, in this case, a percentage sign. The other thing is that you may have a limit when it comes to your LMS. I just recently worked with a client that had a limit of 28 characters for the title of the package name that we were going to load up to the LMS. That's not the title of the actual course. That's the title of the SCORM package that was created out of either Articulate or Captivate or something like that to load up to the LMS, and also the one that they would use when they deposited it in their source files. So let's go back a bit. Remember that percentage sign? I want to show you just what I had just recently. A client of mine sent me this file. I've taken off the extension and I've taken off a bit of the words at the front, but you can see that this makes absolutely no sense to man, beast, or God. It is a horrible spaghetti mess of alphanumeric character strings. So this came from an FTP, and it tells me that perhaps the naming conventions they used for their project organization were not as efficient as they could be. Let's take it one step further. That 28 character limit, the company had a policy. You always put the company name in front of every project you do. Not just the end product, but also the project name and the file. After that, of course, you put the project name. The problem is, we had a 28 character limit, and that is 46. So we sat in a room and we smiled at each other and came up with some ideas. This is what we came up with. Let's take away the company name. That was as good as it got. And by doing that, it came down to 33 characters. Still not the magical number of 28, but getting closer. So a couple of bright sparks said that they would do it, so we locked them in a room and fed them bad coffee and some stale donuts, and they came up with this. Still 33. But this style of naming convention is called snake case, where everything just joins. But we figured out we could actually do better than that. So we locked them in the room again, and in the morning they came back and said, how about this? What they'd done is they'd taken out all the prepositions and the definite articles and indefinite articles that didn't really define anything, and they kept the snake case. Count quickly, go on, count it, because this is only 22 characters long, and that is under the magical 28 characters. But while doing so, our brain boxes, our instructional design brain boxes said to us, we can do even better. So we said, how the hell can you do better? They said, give us fresh donuts and we'll show you. But what they did was quite simply this. They took out the snake case, they capitalized the first letter of every single word and rammed it together. By doing so, the brain is able to parse the words out really efficiently. And so this was very quickly adopted as an experiment going forward for the next quarter, with the understanding that if we didn't like it or it wasn't liked, that in fact we would go back in and change it to what it previously was. But this works. And indeed, they're now following this naming convention, and it's so short, in this particular case, they were actually able to put the date on the end because they had a requirement for doing that, and they felt also by searching for dates, it would make it more efficient than anything else. But you can utilize these methods, snake case, camel case. By the way, this is called camel case. It's also called nerd case, bump case. And of course, it only has 19 characters in it, which is fabulous. So now we've seen some file naming conventions, and now we're going to come down to the juicy bit, which is project organization. Here's my Windows Explorer, or my Finder, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to choose. And I've made a project template zip file, which I will include in the bottom of this video. And I use this every single time that I have a very simplistic way of organizing a project. Let's have a look at how it works. Every time I have it, I copy this into the folder of the new project and just open it up, inside of which I have the archive. And I rename the archive to the camel case of the actual project name. From there, I open it up, and you can see I have 8 folders which address the bare bones of every type of file that I am used to seeing in the work that I do. So should there be any voiceovers, goes in audio, if there's any documents, they go there. You can see how this works. But you can also see that I have a very rudimentary version control system going on too, because each of those folders contains another folder called archive. This means that every time I receive an update to any of those files that live in those particular folders, I can simply just append the new file with the new revolution or the new version, and then take the older one and drop it into the archive folder. Why do I do that? It gives me an accountability trail, a history of our design intent, and also means that should anything happen and we have to go back to a previous version, I have that available at my fingertips. And I'll have a very good idea which one it is, because of course it'll have a V1, 2, or an R1, R2, whichever nomenclature you use to denote versioning. And all of this is just so easy to do. Why don't I put them as project names and things like that? Well, quite simply, I've learned that when someone sends you an email, they say, I attached a PowerPoint to the PowerPoint to it. The spreadsheet, the document, I attached my comments, etc., etc. So they're attaching documents, Excel spreadsheets, etc. You get it, you know what it's like. So with this, I get to see just the bare bones, and I have my version control going forwards. What happens though, if we want to take this to the next level? I'd like to introduce you to Post-Haste. Post-Haste is a free tool from digitalrebellion.com, and I'll show you the website in just a few seconds. It's for Windows and Macintosh, so you can have the benefit of a professional level and ultimately flexible project organization tool. Let's see how it works. When you open it up, you come to this new project. But what we want to do is create a brand new template for ourselves, because initially Post-Haste was made for the video audio world. We want to make it for the instructional design world. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to add down the bottom left-hand corner a new template. And I'm going to call it ID. Now, in my ID, you can see under the right-hand side, under the File section, it says clean as a whistle. So we're going to add files. And like you see, I can add folders, text documents, multimedia style documents as well. But look at the bottom, and I can import a whole folder structure. If I do that and I go to my project template, there's my archive. Select all those folders and just click open. And there they all are. This is the basic structure that we're going to be using time after time after time again. With this all set up as a template, I can come back to the new project star here. And under the project template area, I can choose instructional design. And I've got a number of the parameters here I can use. The project number, I can actually set to whatever it is, for whatever reason, or I can set it as clear. The client may not necessarily be a client, could be a department, could be internal or external. It doesn't matter. Do I have a project name? And should I use camel case, snake case, nerd case? Whatever you want. And should it have a date appended to it? Because as you see at the bottom at the moment, it's called Y Project underbar 2019-03-06 underbar Lawrence, because there's the date. And if I click on it and delete it, you'll notice down in the preview, the date disappears. And the editors here could be the creators, the instructional designers themselves. So this is me. So I'm going to be appended to that. But if I don't want it to be, there we go. When I do that, I can just say, create the project. Post-Haste will go off, create the project for me, and there's my project. And there's everything that I need. And you can add and take away from these folders in Post-Haste, and it will add them to your standardized project organization. So before I leave, I did say I was going to show you the project website, and here is Post-Haste. You can see the download for either platform, and you can see that they've got support. And if the Digital Rebellion boys and girls ever watch this and listen to it, if you could make something for instructional designers, I'm pretty sure you'd have a lot of thanks out there from a great deal of people. My name is Lawrence Eaton. This is the Slightly Facetious video series, and we've been looking at project organization. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye-bye now.